Good morning, welcome to Ag Talking to Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. Haven't really talked too much about agriculture lately on this channel. I guess I have, but not as much as I would like to. Yeah. So, what's to talk about? We have a delayed harvest everywhere. I spoke with a friend of mine. Well, he's actually a cousin friend of mine, distant cousin. Tried to buy his corn fodder yesterday, and he's like, nah, I need that for organic matter, which is within his right. I think he needs to weigh the options of, the cost of nitrogen to break down the stalks versus the cost of potash to replace what is taken off with the stalks. But you can't replace organic matter. So he denied, he said, nah, I don't want it. But he was worrying about the wheat. How am I going to get my wheat planted? He says, it's getting late. And I agree. It is, October 13th? And I know two people that have a very small amount of wheat planted. Now, these guys up here, they like to get soybeans off, at the end of September and early October, last week of September, first week of October, and put soybeans in. To put wheat in after they pull the soybeans off. And that's great. I mean, that's a good program. But when it gets in towards the end of October, you get that burr, chilly, cold, damp soil thing going on here. Now, my friend up the road here, he's putting wheat in. He's got about 30 acres planted, and he's like pulling his hair out. He is using a pop-up fertilizer for the wheat because he feels that that's going to give him the edge on the cool weather, which in reality is true. If you feed that stuff, it will just say, okay, so what? It's cold. I got my winter jacket on. Let's go. And it'll do that. I grew wheat years ago, and I was too poor to put much of anything on for late planted wheat. Now, when we would chop corn silage off for the cows, then we would put rye in for the cows to eat in the spring, or we would put wheat in on the farther away farms. And, mostly we would only put in maybe 50 to 100 acres of wheat, which really isn't much, but it was good for straw and bedding for the cows, and that's what we did. Manure on wheat is a little bit hard on it during the course of the winter, but you can put it on rye. It always worked pretty good on rye. And, of course, as the dairy farm went away, as we sold the dairy in 2011, we stopped with manure and we used human waste. Yes, human waste. Human waste was fun. I'd used that since the early 90s. Stinky. We called it poo-poo. But, yeah, it was stinky, and it was not, to me, it was fine. I didn't care. I could eat and drink, my lunch next to stuff. But when you get down to it, people that were driving down the road were a little offended by the smell. And I'll never forget the one woman. She was rolling up her windows as I was coming. Her windows were down. See, back in the day, not everybody had air conditioning in their cars. So I'd say this is about 92, 93. 92 or 93. What year was it? It had to be. No, 1995. Okay, so 1995. I had a car that came without air conditioning. But today, if you would have to order a car without air conditioning because they all come with air conditioning. I don't know any manufacturer that builds a car without air conditioning. But back in the dark ages, you were special if you had air conditioning. So, anyways, I know the property, I know the corner. And it was 1995 because it was the first year that we were farming that property, and the soil was sour. It was like pH of 5. It was pretty bad. So we had this lime stabilized sludge, and it wasn't bad. It depended on where it came from, but if you got it from the place up north here called Hydropress, it was clumpy, nasty shit. I mean, it wasn't like brown turds, it was gray because of the lime. But if you got it from the government, Middlesex County Sewer Authority, they had a plant that was producing that lime stabilized sludge. It was a pretty damn nice product. It almost looked as though it was granular sand. It was a little damp, but it flowed nice through the spreader, and it worked really, really well. So that's what we got. We got lime stabilized sludge from there. And I remember coming around the corner by the Leon Sod Farm sign at the corner of Pittstown and Route 12. And this woman had her windows open. And the ammonia smell, it was just ammonia, you know. The ammonia smell was pretty bad. So I'm coming around the corner, and this woman comes down Pittstown Road as I'm making that corner. And I saw her, you know, I'm like, okay, I see her coming. So she's coming down the road, and I'm coming here, and I'm about mid-corner as she pulls up to the stop sign, and I'm thinking, you know, I might be a little close to the road with this stuff. And you're really not supposed to sling it onto the road or sling it into the road or onto cars or into their window. But I didn't sling it into the window. But what did go in the window was ammonia. So I come around the corner, and I'm heading up across the field, and she's at the end of the road at the stop sign there, or just before the stop sign, and the ammonia goes into the car. So she's like, I don't see her. I honestly, I don't see her until I'm coming back across the field. Now, it's a 7-acre field, so it's not really that big. I'm coming back there, and she's standing there with her arms on her hips, and she's pointing like, you know, you're spraying this toxic shit, and I have to breathe it, you know, just goes off the reservation on me over this stuff. And I'm like, well, let's see. In 1995, I was 23. I was 23 years old. I was a respectful 23 years old. I'm not like I am today. You ask anybody that knew me when I was young, they say that Wesley Pandy is not the same person that he is today. It had something to do with the divorce and the lack of liking people after that. But anyway, you know, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. And what am I supposed to do with this shit that's on my feet? And I said, well, ma'am, if you'd have stayed in your car, you'd have never stepped in that shit. Well, what is it? What is it? I said, it's human waste. Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. She got back in her car. The shoes were on the side of the road, and she left. And that was the end of that. So, you know, these are some of the crazy things that happen to you when you're a farmer and you're doing things that not everybody agrees with. And I'm really excited about spreading spent compost because they can't say a damn thing about that. They really can't. It's spent soil. It's literally just soil. It's hay, it's straw, it's poultry litter, composted poultry litter, composted manure, horse manure, and a whole bunch of other ingredients that are in there. So, but it does have a bit of a smell. But it's a smell that is not regulated by anyone. They can't do anything about it. So, when I start spreading that stuff, I'm sure there's going to be some videos about that. So anyway, yeah. So I'm having a hard time procuring corn stalks. Now, I have kind of a agreement with the composter to bale these corn stalks for them. It isn't really a rock-solid contract, but it is a contract that I will be supplying some corn fodder to them. They want 1,500 tons. I am not going to be able to get 1,500 tons down to them, even though I would love to. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I mean, some of the biggest guys that I went to talk to, they're like, no, we don't want to do that. We'll just spend money to break down the corn stalks instead of removing them. Now, the one guy, he works his corn stalks into the ground, so it's not that big of a deal. But the other guy, he just no-tills, and, you know, they blow off. That organic matter isn't really getting into the soil like it would if you were to work it down, and, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, with that being said, the corn that I'm going to be growing this coming year is going to. I'm excited. You know, I thought about buying a new corn planter and buying a new header for the combine and all this, and I'm like, do I really need to spend the money on that? I don't think so. Wide rows, antique. Really, honestly, they're antique. They're not what you would really want to have for, growing corn for today's day and age and the varieties. But not that wide row corn can't produce, that 250 bushel for corn, 250 bushels to the acre. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are going to say, oh, you're such a hypocrite because you say grow less corn and you'll make more money in the long run. That's correct. That is correct. That is just the cold hard facts of that thought process. But when there's a bunch of farmers like you guys out there that are watching this and saying, you know what, I'm not going to grow less corn. I'm not going to fertilize less. I'm not going to grow 150 bushel corn because if I grow 150 bushel corn, I won't have as much money as my neighbor and he's going to rent the ground away. And that's the mentality of a farmer. If you don't have the money to do it. So we're like dogs running to the end of our chain. And, the end of the chain is getting close because corn can only go so far before it can't go anymore. You see, when they modify these varieties of corn, and maybe some of you think I'm fucking crazy, but when you modify something, so like this piece of paper here, it is designed to do one thing, right? So if I decide that I don't want it to do that, all right, and I do this, right? See, I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is better to hold the little cable, and I try this, and I go to stick it in there, and I realize that this is what I have, and it's terrible. So I've modified it, right? And I'm like, you know what? I really don't want it to be that way, and this is corn. And then I go to put it back together, and now it looks kind of messed up, kind of fucked up. So when you modify something that you think is going to be better, or it becomes better, you take away from something else. So corn and scientists and breeding programs, breeding programs is the slow way of producing a crop that has higher yield, higher standability, higher stalk strength, higher everything. It takes away from something else, whether it be disease resistance. It takes away from disease resistance, takes away from insect resistance, natural insect resistance. So when you put something into a plant or breed something into a plant that makes it stronger, healthier in the stalk strength and the ear size and the kernel depth and the weight of that grain, you take away from the side that is like mold and mildew resistant and insect resistant, and maybe nutrient uptake can be limited because you're doing this stuff here, and then you have to go back to the old standard, and maybe it doesn't look quite right because that pollen is out there in the world and it can contaminate. And yes, you could be 40 miles away and maybe recover some of your original varieties. But anyway, that being said, give and take. It's one thing for another. It's just like going out and buying a bigger tractor and pulling a 25-foot disc. So your 25-foot disc was able to be pulled by a 4960 John Deere tractor through heavy clay soil in like 6th gear or 7th gear. And now you've got you're like, wow, that's kind of slow. My neighbor, he's got a 250 horsepower tractor and he's pulling that same disc in 8th or 9th gear. He's flying, So I'm going to go buy the bigger tractor to hook to my 25-foot disc because, God damn it, I'm not going to allow that red tractor to beat my John Deere tractor. And what do you have? You've got a bigger bill. You'd swap in a paid-for tractor, now you've got a bill, and then you hook it to your 25-foot disc, and you're pulling it so fast, you're making ridges in the field, and you break your disc because it's just, you put something into it, it takes away from the original purpose or the original way it is. So, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. So, as far as corn and soybeans go, they're really limited. They're getting down to it. They're finding out that in order to increase your yields, well, they found this out back in the early 90s. They probably knew it much sooner than that. They just didn't have the technology to do it. Was that an average of a field is 150 bushels to the acre, but at this end of the field, we're getting 225, and at this end of the field, we're getting 125 bushels, and now we're at this 250, 265 bushel yield of corn, which would probably be pretty somewhat accurate due to my brain dead math. So fertilizer companies, technology companies are like, okay, so this new technology of GPS and mapping has come in, and we can tell through our sensors and our yield monitors and everything where in the field things are low, and then we do soil testing to find out what's so good about the soil over here and not so good about the soil down here, and then they level the field out. So instead of making that corn variety grow uber amounts of corn, they are actually taking the ground and evening it up so that this 225, which is achievable at the south end of the field, but the north end of the field is only 125 bushels. What do we do to get that up? And that's where the higher yields are coming in. And I agree with that, but I also agree with the more corn that we grow, or the more we level out those fields, the lower our pricing is. Now, kudos to the president. He just signed into or mandated, I guess he did sign it in, but he mandated that the George W. Bush ethanol program is now back on track. We are supposed to be at 20% ethanol right now in the gasoline, and we are now up to 15%. We were at 10. Obama made it at 10, left it at 10, said no more. 10 is 10. And, of course, then you get all the whiners and the criers how corn is going to be worth too much money and these farmers are going to start making money and they're going to be rich and then the development will stop because farmers will be buying ground and blah, 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 blah. And, oh, yeah, don't forget, ethanol doesn't get the gas mileage that gasoline does, but ethanol is a renewable source, you fucking moron, and it is cheaper at the pump than gasoline is. So as gasoline creeps up, and they add more ethanol, that'll bring the price of gasoline down because you're putting a cheaper product in that is renewable, and it just levels out that gas price. So I'd like to see ethanol get up to 50%. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, 50%, we'd be probably growing corn that would easily be sold for $7 or $7.50 a bushel to produce ethanol. Talks in the early to mid 2000s about putting an ethanol plant here locally where the old paper mill was or still stands. It's just this dilapidated mess that's in there. But that paper mill would have been an awesome site for corn. There's a rail line that come down to it, and the rail line is still there. They actually started working on that rail line to get it down there, so make it a healthy rail line so that they could bring trains of corn in from up north or out in Pennsylvania or wherever in the world that they needed it to supply corn for the ethanol plant. And they got a lot of investors from local farming investors into it. And then, of course, all the suits walked away with our money. Here's $60,000 and poof, gone. They didn't really want it here because that would put a demand onto corn. Corn price would go up. As the corn price goes up, farmers would compete for the land, and there would be rent paid, and it becomes a vicious cycle, and then we're all making back down to nothing again. So, but I felt that it was kind of dirty of these businessmen to take the farmers' money and say, we did all this research, so we needed that money, and the research is done and the project is dead, so see ya, and then you get nothing in return. So you got to be careful what you invest in also. I mean, it was their choice, but still, it's enough to piss you off that they took advantage of farmers that were trying to survive in our area and would be able to grow a crop of corn to supply at least some of the use for that ethanol. And, of course, when Obama Salami comes in and says, no, we're not going to go any more than 10%. We actually want MTBE back in our gasoline for the winter time, which was poisonous, by the way. It ate through fiberglass, by the way. It ruined a lot of wildlife and streams, by the way, MTBE, which was an oil company product. Methyl ethyl something or other, butyl MTBE ethylene, butyl ethylene or whatever the heck. But MTBE was very poisonous, and it was bad. So whatever. Ethanol's not really that bad. You can drink it. You can drink ethanol. They call it denatured alcohol when you go to the hardware store, because they put something in there so that it fucks you up, and don't drink it. But if you were making ethanol, and before it goes into the denaturing process, i.e. gasoline, you could drink it. It's called white lightning. At least that's what I was always told it was called by my great uncle, who would go out with 5-gallon pails as we were filling the silo and getting the squeezins, he says. It's the squeezins out of the silage. And he tried to make white lightning out of it. I never got a taste of it because I was just a kid. But anyways, that's just me rambling on about that. So anyways, just be careful what you invest in. If these guys come to you and say, hey, you know what, we got 15% ethanol going in and we're thinking about putting up an ethanol plant. Give us all your money so that we can do the research and you'll benefit in the end. Well, maybe. maybe not. The reason I'm growing corn is because I have a cheap source of fertilizer. That's why I'm going to go back into corn. Well, one of the reasons I want to go back into corn. The second reason I want to go back into corn is because I just miss it. You know, I miss it. I miss the smell of corn. I miss the planting. I miss the harvesting. I mean, harvesting corn, to me, I don't know. It was like the first thing I did in the combine. The old TR-70 combine was pick corn. Chopping corn. Those are bygone days. I'll never be able to do that again. Not that I can't do it. It's just, I guess I could. It's just, do I really want to get into animals at 46 years old? No. I don't. There's just not enough money in it. Anybody that went from dairy to beef in this area is out of business already. They sold everything. There is a few cows lingering here. I got a neighbor up the road here. She wants cows in the worst way, but she has to have an outside job just to feed her cows and then, you know, can't pay her taxes and all other sorts of things, which is a shame, but that's the way it is. But I also don't want to be just this mulch hay producer. You know, it's like, oh, that guy's bottom rung agriculture, as my one friend tells me. Oh, you're bottom rung. Well, I may be bottom rung, but I'm paying my bills, you know. And it does suck. I mean, I don't want to grow hay for horses or cattle or sheep. Sheep probably wouldn't be too bad, but I had a guy that was interested in, how many tons? He wanted 900 tons. He wanted 900 tons of hay for his sheep. And I was like, okay, I'll produce you 900 tons of grass hay. Not really that big of a deal. Second cut is what he wanted. I said, second cut grass hay in big bales. I want $180 a ton for it. I will deliver it to you for that price. And he was like, $180 a ton? Well, that's a lot of money. I was like, well, yeah, what the fuck do you think? You think this is a cheap job? I mean, 900 tons, $180 a ton. Well, it's not 180,000, but it's close to 150. You know, or something like that, you know, $150,000. And he's like, and I told him, I said, before I bale it for you, I'll preserve it if you want. I said, what do you want? You want salt on it, or do you want the preservative? He said, well, I don't want anything. I don't really want anything on it. I was like, well, okay, then you're going to take the risk for molding and things like that, because I'm going to bale this and deliver it directly to you, and then it's your issue. He's like, well, okay. Let me talk to my partner. And I was like, let me talk to my partner means, fuck you, I'm not paying $180 a ton for that hay. You ain't worth it, your equipment ain't worth it, and your time isn't worth it. I want hay, good hay, for nothing, because that's the way these assholes are. Now, the mushroom barns, the quality on the mushroom mulch hay has increased. You have to have higher quality grass product for them, or they are not going to take it. Their formulas have changed, and they are, you know, being more and more fussy. So if you want to be in this business, you have to be smart, right? That just makes sense, you know. I mean, if you're going to be in the grain business and you sell them moldy corn, they're going to dock you for it, correct? It's no different in mulch hay, except they don't care about the mold. What they care about is weed content, quality of the grass, and, you know, can't be rotten. Now, I've seen other YouTubers post pictures of rotten hay on trailers and then complain that the mushroom barn rejects them, but they can feed it to cows. I wouldn't feed it to anything, for Christ's sakes. I mean, that's ridiculous. Once it gets that far gone, it's too far gone. I've thrown away, well, this year I threw away about $30,000 worth of hay. Yes, that hurt. I mean, that hurt. I had weather like this. It's raining again, by the way. Yesterday was a beautiful sunny day, and I was like, yes, if I could just get 3 days of this, I'll be back on the fields, and I'll be able to do some work. But no, not at all. And we have to have an inch of rain again, you know. So here I am making videos because I can't go out and do my job. But I will be working on the 4910. I do have some, I'm going to show some people out there that have these balers, or any balers that are out there, how to make your pre-high density baler accept high density baling twine. Yes, this is something that I learned and do through research and talking to people, how to produce a heavier bale out of your 4910, or how to make a high density baler, take high density baling twine. High density baling twine is extremely thick. So on One Lonely Farmer channel, probably tomorrow, I'm going to post a video on that because you know what? I'm not feeling myself today. I haven't been feeling myself the last couple of days because of things that are going on around here, and I'll clue you in on those when that comes to fruition, and when I feel it's time to tell everybody what happened. Anyway, it's agriculture is a struggle, no matter who you are, where you are, and what you're doing. If you watch other farming channels, you will see, I know that I'm going to get inundated with, quit your crying, go stand in the rainstorm and cry, why don't you, But if you go to the other farming channels, they're all crying the same blues. Maybe we're not actually tears running down our face crying, and, the reality is we will get our work done because we're not city folk that just say, fuck it, and go on vacation. We're farmers. We're resilient. We do the job that needs to get done, whether it's for reduced yield or pay. In the end, we get it done because that's just what we do. And I think that's one thing that all farmers are alike, is we just don't give up. It's like this YouTube thing. I've gotten emails criticizing me, and I really don't care, and don't put a bunch of comments down below here saying, oh, just ignore the trolls. I don't really care about the trolls. I think that they're here for a reason, and they're helping me grow my channel. They're obviously subscribed, and they have me on notifications because they're usually the first ones to comment. But those trolls, you should quit now. You got the other farming channels are much better than yours, and they're passing you, and you're just left in the dust. Yay. I started this YouTube channel almost 10 years ago. Getting close. A couple more months, and it'll be 10 years. Can you believe that? December 2008, I started this channel. And, yeah, I didn't post. I had some videos posted on there. They were not, and I've said this before, on One Lonely Farmer channel. I had some videos posted on there that were with my kids and stuff, and I wish I'd have saved them. They were on an old computer, and that computer, I have the hard drive, but now I have a Mac, and I can't read it. I guess I could hook it up to Teresa's computer, but there's a bunch of hard drives, maybe 2 or 3 of them, that have all my photos and stuff from when my kids were little on there. And, when I was a kid, we took a hard copy photograph, ka-ching, took it down to the photomat, left it there. 3 days later, we picked up our photographs and we looked through them, put them in a box, and didn't look at them for 20 years. But at least we had them in 20 years. This stuff, this digital decay that's happening, who knows if they're even going to be there. So, yeah. So, what I was saying is no matter how bad this weather is, no matter what farming channel you're looking at, there's frustration everywhere. But a farmer just doesn't sit at home and watch TV. He goes and does the things that he would normally do in the wintertime when you're not harvesting or not planting or not doing that stuff. We're doing the things that we need to do. Like I have to go deal with banking issues, and not banking issues, but I have to go deal with the banker and get that stuff straightened out. And I have to, go take a hard look at my insurance because I feel that I'm underinsured for what I have now, and it's a lot of money that I spend. I mean, I think my insurance was $21,000 last year for insurance, liability, and all that. It's fucking crazy. $21,000 a year in insurance. There's a lot of people in this world that don't make that kind of money, and that's my insurance bill. I have to update my stupid workman's comp policy because that needs to be. They're taking too much money, and I don't know if they're going to give me my money back because Cody didn't work for me this year, and they needed a lot of money there. So there was $7,000 or $8,000 that went out the door, which I don't think $8,000 is for $100,000 worth of labor, which I didn't have that kind of labor. Timothy's on his own now. He makes his own hay and his own deal, and so I don't have. He's not on my workman's comp. He's there. He helps me, but it's still the policy is there, and I don't actually write him a check anymore. So, but it is what it is, and these are the things that we do when we're not in the field making hay or stringing ropes in barns to hang ourselves because we can't get our work done. There are plenty of farmers that have done that, mostly dairy farmers. Thank you, Walmart. I heard that the suicide rate in dairy farmers climbed when Walmart shut them all out, and they have nothing else to do but milk their cows and dump it. Oh, I got a phone call, and I'm not answering it because I just don't want to. I'll call him back in a couple of seconds. But actually, you know what? I'm going to sign off now. It's 30 minutes. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe for more.